What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is a video review of the Nerf Siege-50. This blaster is a spring-powered, slamfire-enabled, hopper-fed blaster with a capacity of 50 rounds. And it, of course, is a hyper blaster firing the new hyper rounds. I have a dedicated video introducing the new hyper rounds, but in short, they're a smaller version of rival rounds that are rubber instead of foam. They're very comparable to rival rounds, but they are not compatible with rival rounds or rival blasters. So let's get into the review. Included is the blaster, 40 hyper rounds, safety glasses, and the instructions. External overview of the Siege, starting up at the front, there's no in-strike barrel lug. Up top we have a tactical rail. This is a rival style rail. This is not an in-strike rail. And up here we have a front sight which corresponds with the rear sights here. Down here we have the priming handle. This is a spring-powered blaster to prime. You do that. The prime strength required is similar to other rival blasters on the market, but it is harder to prime than most Nerf Elite blasters on the market. It shoots hard like a rival blaster, so that is to be expected. Moving back, we have two access doors, one on each side. These are itsy bitsy little access doors. My finger can't even get in there. I did not experience any jams or malfunctions that required the access door to clear though. Moving back to the hopper, this is how the blaster's fed. To open up the hopper, you can pull on the door like that. Then you get your hyper rounds and you just drop them on in there. It's just like loading a hopper in the rival series. I counted and the hopper comfortably fits 50 rounds, so I'd say the capacity is 50. You can actually shove more than 50 rounds in there, but the hopper might not feed correctly. You need a little bit of slack for the balls to move around. Moving over here, we have an unjamming button. This is now common in all Nerf blasters. If the blaster seizes up and you can't fire and you can't reprime it, this button will disengage that lock so you can clear out a jam. I did not experience any jams or malfunctions that required this button to unjam. And moving back, we have a trigger safety over here. In the down position, it is locked. You're not able to fire. You move it up, and you're able to fire. Moving back to the trigger, this has a flat trigger just like the other hyper blasters, which feels a little different. It's kind of a performance thing in the firearm industry, so that's kind of cool. But for the most part, it's just a style thing. It's not really going to affect performance. But other than that, the trigger pull is pretty standard. This blaster does have slam fire. However, it's skipped tremendously when using slam fire, and it's not really a usable thing for most battle situations. It technically has slam fire, but it's really not practical. I'll get into that after you see it fire. And moving back, we have another tack rail under here. Again, this is a rival style rail. And now down to the grip. This is a somewhat oversized grip. It feels more similar to a rival blaster than an elite blaster. Keep in mind the grip angle is pretty slanted forward, so it has a different feel. It's not good or bad, it's just different. I personally prefer more upright pistol style grips, but this works. It's pretty comfortable. And this little bar really does not impede grip. It's pretty wide. So even if you have super fat fingers, you'll be able to fit on this grip just fine. And in the back of the blaster here, we have a priming indicator. So that is an external overview of the Siege. Let's see it fire. So firing the Siege was a pretty mixed experience. Now this would be a pretty solid proof of concept blaster, but a battle effective blaster? I don't know. So if you're shooting perfectly level or down, it feeds pretty reliably. But slam fire, even when I held it down, did not feed reliably. I dry fired a lot. Now I didn't have any catastrophic jams or malfunctions that I had to like open it up to clear out, but dry firing when you think you're shooting is seriously annoying. So overall firing experience was pretty mixed. But to compare this blaster to others, I put it up on my chronograph. And with the new hyper rounds achieved an average velocity of 101 feet per second. This is the slowest shooting hyper blaster so far, but there are only 3 so far. So I don't know the whole series is average or par, but right now it's between 100 and 115 FPS. But Rival's average is 90 to 100 FPS, so this is still shooting pretty fast. That is all of the objective information I can provide on this blaster. Now to my personal opinion. Overall, I'm pretty disappointed with the Siege. Now don't get me wrong, as a proof of concept, it works pretty well. It's really cool to have a hopper-fed spring-powered blaster like this. And it works better than Dartzone's attempt at making something very similar a few years ago. So it works better than I thought, but it still doesn't work well enough for me to use this in a battle. It just dry fires a lot. Unless you sit there and pay total attention to make sure, okay, I'm pointing it down, prime, point it up, fire, and you're just only thinking about the blaster, which is a little unrealistic in battle conditions, so I wouldn't trust this blaster to feed in an actual Nerf war. But then again, I'm a very trigger-happy Nerfer. I like to shoot as much foam, or in this case, rubber, as possible. If you're somebody that plays a little slower and a bit more methodically and you place your shots, this could be a very functional blaster for you. I mean, it has a 50-round capacity on a very small footprint. That's a very impressive primary for the right type of player. So it's not all bad. It does have a lot to offer for some types of Nerfers, but I personally would not recommend this blaster to most of you guys. And I personally will not be using this in any Nerf wars. And that's purely because dry fires drive me absolutely crazy. If I get my shot lined up and my target finally gets out of that barrier and I'm ready and I dry fire, instead of getting a kill, it just drives me crazy. So mixed opinions on this one. I'm sure some Nerfers are going to buy it and be very happy with it for a specific type of playstyle. It doesn't fit my playstyle, and it's just not reliable enough for me to recommend. But hopefully I've laid out everything so you can make an educated purchase decision on the Siege. If you'd like to buy one, I'll put a purchase link in the description box below when they become available. That's it for this video review. Thanks so much for watching, bros, and as always, stay tactical.